Hey everybody, what is going on? I am Maximus Rex and this is Big Baby Reviews. Today's Keith Giffen Wednesday, so we're taking a look at the next issue of the Legion of Superheroes storyline featuring Darkseid. Not a spoiler, I've mentioned it before. This is issue number 291, cover dated September 1982. Officially, we haven't seen Darkseid yet, so back in the day when people would have read this, maybe it would have been a surprise, but there are some hints along the way, and I'll definitely be pointing those out, the ones that are present in this issue here. As far as the cover goes, usually I'm pretty behind a bold use of yellow. I just find it kind of weird here, but I guess it gives it a more vintagey feel. This is 1982, right? So right before the neon kind of stuff takes over. I've mentioned before how I still feel there's a lot of a 70s influence within this Legion of Superhero storyline. A lot of nice, beautiful, psychedelic, kind of cool looking abstract artwork for power emanations and portals and all that cool stuff that, usually invokes some Kirby stuff, and that's why I'm interested in it. Cover's pretty cool here. Some nice color holds in the back for the white negative space here. The Kirby crackles in white and the silhouette of these characters and that light reflection, the way he does it, I think works pretty well. Almost like a nuclear explosion or something. That's it for the cover, guys. Let's have a look inside. This might be a fairly short review just because not the whole issue does not specifically focus that much on the storyline bits where those dark creatures are stealing artifacts and bringing them back to a character who will eventually be revealed to be Darkseid, right? So here we've got the captured denizen of the dark here, and it's unfortunate because of the production values we don't quite see here. It's almost like the computer that they're using has drawn, a vascular representation of her body here and sort of an anatomical, architectural, structural. I don't even know if the camera's going to pick that up there, maybe slightly, but for some reason or another in production, it didn't quite come out as well as it probably should have. It's there, but it's really hard to see. But overall, I just like this first splash page and introduces us back to the concept of this character that's been captured. The angle here, the foreground, the middle ground, background, bit of Kirby tech here, but obviously interpreted in a newer kind of way by Keith Giffen. And even this bit here, which suggests some sort of window pane or something, just works really well for me. And I mean, Keith Giffen is a pretty solid artist by this point. It's just, I've talked about how it's, other than the Kirby elements, it looks kind of DC house style, and it's a little bit boring. But he'll tilt the angle every once in a while, do it Marvel style. Again, the coloring here kind of obscures her form here in profile, but I really like the bed she's laying on and all the technology and stuff. Looks great. Here's interesting where last issue, this guy, the master planner here, who's having them, all these other minions bring artifacts to him, powerful artifacts, referred to this guy as his son, right? And again, this comes up. He says, "Yes, my son." As he answers his question, then his son says, "Watchmaster, see how I use the Astro Force you've given me." I've talked already about how last issue it seems like this character has the harness of Orion, right? So he calls it here, he doesn't call it the Astro Harness, but the use of the Astro Force, which I'm sure has been coined before in the Fourth World Saga. So I'm almost convinced at this point that this is for sure Orion, some twisted version of Orion. And that smoking circle he's got on his forehead is even more of an indication, because if you are familiar with Orion, in his design, he's got that circle on the forehead of his helmet. So here I'll go quickly because we weave back into a subplot about this character being accused of a crime and having to go to court. Here he's consulting his lawyer, I think, or legal counsel, just a weird looking alien. So it's kind of interesting, pretty phallic overall. Some cool production stuff down here though, with the way the body's depicted and the screen tone stuff. Again, harkens back, like I talked about last review, more to that 70s kind of quality that I like. I like the design of the future here and the architecture and stuff though by Keith Giffen. I think he's doing a good job. There's a little bit of Kirby influence, but he's making it his own. And I feel like using design elements from the 80s now, or late 70s and 80s. I had this toy that would clink around. You can make a square and turn it and stuff that kind of resembles this stuff here. So I'm almost wondering if that's the inspiration there, where the idea might have come from. Again, this is B story where the Legionnaires are still kind of talking about Chameleon Boy and his trial. I think it's Chameleon Boy. They call him Cam here, or Cham. So, if you don't know the book, you'd be completely confused, right? I'm just jumping into the storyline, so I don't know what went on before. So I'm aware of that now and reading sequential, mainstream comics. So I know that's kind of what's going on. As a kid, though, you'd be like very confused. But that's where you go and seek out those issues to find out, right? It's kind of the idea. And yeah, so talking about the elections as well, right? They're supposed to elect a new leader of the Legion. And again, just here there's chaos because it's some sort of prison colony, if I'm not mistaken. And basically the prisoners have escaped and they're tormenting their captors, who are on the side of the law. So you've got the Legionnaires here coming out to help them, obviously, right? This, though, is where one of the minions of our Dark Lord or Dark Side come into play once again. Not quite sure why he comes out here, to find another artifact or to fight. It's, I'll be honest, I didn't read this issue as attentively just because it's not as good as the first issue of the storyline, to be honest. We only get a bit of these guys. Hopefully in the next few issues we get more of that stuff and less of the ancillary stuff like the election and Chameleon Boy and his trial, right? But again, in the context of a sequential monthly comic, I get it. I don't know if this is recycled. It seems to be all... No, the position's different a little bit. Okay, so what we're seeing here is in the other dimension where the boom tubes that I described are appearing and these minions are flowing out of. I just thought, again, it's 1982, man, so, you can't fault these guys, but there's some cheesy stuff. Legion, again, why would this be a comic that I wouldn't regularly read or seek out, other than the fact that Keith Giffen is participating in this one, art-wise, and, the New Gods kind of dark side aspect, which is interesting to me. It says here, can't see inside even with my penetra vision. So penetrating vision, that's what he calls his power. Just so cheesy. And of course the Legionnaires, as usual, get their asses handed to them, except for this guy, Mon-El, who's apparently, is he Superman's, not ancestor, but Superman's whatever in the future, right? Superman is Mon-El's ancestor. At least I think that's how it goes. I'm not 100% sure. Some more B storyline involving Superboy here, but again, drawn to me to look pretty much like Superman. I would not assume this is a boy. So the art kind of fails on that a little bit. I see a lot of these vertical panels here. For some reason, I thought this was like a kind of a 90s thing that really started maybe in late 80s with the McFarlane stuff. Not to think that no one else had ever done those vertical panels, but yeah, I just assumed that was a McFarlane thing. And it's nice to see it starting off a little earlier here. And possibly earlier than this, right? I'm sure even Keith Giffen's not the first guy to do it, but smartly, just like Tom McFarlane, cropping everything in so you don't have to draw too much, but you get all the essential elements to understand what's going on. And of course, with this kind of vertical type of action, makes sense to do a vertical type of panel, right? Again, this effect that we had from last issue that I really like, everything kind of zorking out and still giving those 70s vibes. Our other minion with the big head shows up, confronts the Legionnaires here. What he's out for, I'm not quite sure. We get some more kind of cool effects with the Kirby crackle. This sequence is pretty interesting because Invisiboy, or Invisible Lad, or Boy, or Invisi-Guy, actually is able to get through the portal because he's invisible and he thinks he's not seen. But then this character here, that we get a little more of his face now, and you got to say that's starting to look like Darkseid, or at least remind us of him. So he can see him, right? So he says, so they send a child to me. Yes, I can see you, presumptuous one, and see your soul as well. I shall grant you the favor you desire, Jacques Faucard, because he's French, right? For it is the way of gods to grant boons to mortals of courage. I shall deign to let you gaze upon me, a rare honor for a mortal. So he actually lets him see his face, which is clearly off-putting. And familiar eye beams are shot towards him and push him out of the tunnel, I believe. That's what happens here. He's shot back. Yeah, there he is. And he's kind of, becoming visible again and kind of just, what's the word I'm looking for? Just kind of bunched up in the corner there. Darkness, so cold, right? So he's trying to get across this idea that this person is evil and dark and soulless, right? And that's where this issue ends, except for this extra bit here. I don't know if this is extra pages or if the main storyline is missing a few pages. It still continues part of the storyline, though. It's in continuity with what just happened, but it's a different artist here. Guest artist Howard Bender and Rodin or Rodriguez, I guess. looking at this first page, serviceable, definitely talented and solid draftsman, but just kind of boring. Almost looks like a 60s style to a certain extent, DC house style. So I was pleasantly surprised. I should have kind of picked up on it a little bit just by this interesting use of negative space here. There's a plant there, but that's the border panel becoming the plant. I thought is a good idea there. So design-wise, they know what they're doing. And then I turned the page and I was going to go flip through it real quickly, but I came upon this that I don't know if I've ever seen someone design a page this way or use this, trick. I don't know what you'd call it, but basically, the silhouette shape here, you still got her clothing here, and then all of a sudden where her skin is, and this guy's face. So both skin tones or areas that would be skin on both characters just become one big kind of open negative space, and he uses it to create a panel. I've never seen a panel shaped like this, right? It's just kind of crazy and interesting, and it works really well. I thought he did it well, and it's not confusing as to what's going on. The line he chose here for the ice formation, whatever that is there, kind of hints at the continuation of this guy's forehead and head somewhat, you know what I mean? So you still kind of understand, and it clarifies that that's his head, but I thought that was so clever and interesting. I've never seen anything like that. And I'm going to assume the rest of the contour here is like the blankets or something that he's wrapped in on the bed. Not quite sure. But I've never seen anything like that. So I just wanted to point that out because it's very interesting, artistic-wise. Still got a bit with the dark character that they've captured here. Bit of a confrontation between those characters. And she might have gotten the best of them, but no, of course. And the status quo is returned, so I'm assuming next issue she'll be back in her containment bed or whatever they call it, and a prisoner of the Legion. All right, guys, there you go. That is my review of Legion of Superheroes issue number 291. If you're still watching and you are subscribed, thank you so much. I really do appreciate you still being there. And if you're watching but not subscribed, please do so below. It only takes a quick second for you. It really helps us out, really helps the channel grow and get out there to other people who are into comic books, just like we are. Everyone out there, thanks again, and have an awesome day. King Comics presents Big Baby, Volume 1, Issues 1 to 13, 204 pages of story and art. King Comics also presents Star Crasher one-shot, 32 pages, cosmic sci-fi surrealist adventure. You can find these fine comics at KINGCOMICS.CA, at MaximusRex13 on Instagram, or on Facebook, MaxRex or Big Baby.